Before you do anything else, grab your smartphone. The device in your hand is far more than a tool for calls and messages. It contains your photos, emails, banking information, location history, private conversations, online accounts, and years of personal activity. Now imagine discovering that a little-known setting hidden inside that phone could potentially affect how your data is protected. Most people have never heard of it, have never checked it, and certainly have never changed it. Yet understanding this setting is important because your smartphone likely contains more information about your life than any other object you own. Think about everything stored on that device: the messages you've exchanged, the places you've visited, the searches you've performed, the photos you've taken, and the people you've communicated with. All of that information deserves the highest level of protection possible. In this video, we're going to break down a security feature that many users overlook, explain how it works, discuss how investigators and forensic specialists interact with mobile devices, review the major court decisions that have shaped digital privacy rights, and show you how to strengthen your phone's security settings on both iPhone and Android devices in less than a minute. Make sure you stay until the end because I'll also share a complete smartphone privacy checklist that can help maximize the protection of your personal data. Before continuing, a quick disclaimer. This content is provided strictly for educational and informational purposes. Privacy laws, search procedures, and digital rights vary depending on jurisdiction. Nothing in this video should be considered legal advice. If you believe your rights have been violated or you require legal guidance, consult a qualified attorney in your area. Let's start with the feature at the center of this discussion: USB restricted mode. To understand why it matters, you first need to understand how smartphones communicate with other devices. Every modern iPhone and Android phone includes a charging port that also functions as a data connection. Whenever you connect your phone to a computer, transfer files, perform a backup, restore data, or install updates, information travels through that connection. While this functionality is convenient, it is also the pathway used by specialized forensic technology designed to analyze mobile devices. Over the years, law enforcement agencies have utilized advanced forensic tools capable of extracting information from smartphones through their USB connections. To address growing concerns about these capabilities, Apple introduced USB restricted mode with iOS 11.4.1 in 2018. When this security feature is fully active, an iPhone limits USB data communication after it has remained locked for 1 hour. Once that period expires, the port is effectively reduced to charging functions only. Data transfers are blocked, making USB-based access significantly more difficult until the owner unlocks the device with a passcode. However, this is where many users run into a problem. On numerous devices, the most secure configuration is not always enabled in the way users assume. A specific setting determines how much protection USB restricted mode actually provides. Yet many iPhone owners have never reviewed it. Android devices have a similar concern involving developer options and a feature known as USB debugging. In some cases, users may have enabled it years ago while following a tutorial and forgotten it was ever turned on. Understanding and checking these settings is an important step toward improving device security. To appreciate why these protections exist, it helps to understand how mobile forensic tools operate. One of the most widely known systems is Cellebrite UFED, short for Universal Forensic Extraction Device. This technology is used by numerous law enforcement agencies to analyze smartphones. Depending on the device and circumstances, it may be capable of accessing information such as call records, messages, photos, videos, application data, stored passwords, email content, social media information, location history, and other digital records. The effectiveness of these tools often depends on the device's security configuration and whether protective features have already been activated. Another well-known forensic platform is GrayKey, a system designed specifically to target iPhone security. GrayKey attempts to take advantage of vulnerabilities within certain versions of iOS to gain deeper access to a device. Apple routinely releases security updates to close these vulnerabilities, which is why keeping software current is so important. The key takeaway is that forensic tools are generally more effective when they interact with a device before all available security protections have fully engaged. Beyond technology, there is also an important legal issue involving how a phone is unlocked. Courts have frequently distinguished between something you know and something you are. A passcode falls into the first category because it exists only in your mind. Biometric authentication, such as a fingerprint or facial scan, falls into the second category because it relies on physical characteristics. In many legal discussions, this distinction has become extremely significant. Various courts have ruled differently on whether biometric access can be compelled, while traditional passcodes often receive stronger constitutional protection. As a result, many privacy advocates recommend using a strong passcode in addition to biometric security, rather than relying solely on Face ID or fingerprint authentication. Understanding your rights also requires looking at several landmark court decisions. One of the most influential cases is Riley v. California, decided by the U.S. Supreme Court in 2014. In a unanimous decision, the court concluded that law enforcement generally cannot search the digital contents of a cell phone seized during an arrest without first obtaining a warrant. The ruling recognized that modern smartphones contain vast amounts of personal information and therefore deserve substantial constitutional protection. However, the decision did not fully answer every question surrounding digital privacy. Issues involving biometric access, cloud-stored information, and rapidly evolving forensic technologies continue to generate legal debate. Another major decision came in Carpenter versus United States in 2018. In that case, the Supreme Court ruled that individuals have a reasonable expectation of privacy regarding historical cell site location records, meaning law enforcement generally needs a warrant to obtain that information from service providers. While the case strengthened digital privacy protections, questions surrounding compelled biometric access remain unresolved. Courts across different jurisdictions have reached different conclusions, and no single nationwide rule has settled the matter completely. The practical lesson is straightforward. A strong passcode often provides greater legal and technical protection than relying exclusively on facial recognition or fingerprint authentication. Understanding the security settings available on your device, keeping software updated, and taking advantage of built-in protections can significantly improve your overall privacy and help safeguard the enormous amount of personal information stored on your phone. The exact level of protection available to you can vary depending on where you live and how local courts interpret digital privacy laws. However, one thing remains clear. If a device can be accessed through a USB connection before its security protections fully engage, that creates a potential vulnerability. The purpose of the settings we're discussing today is to reduce that risk and make unauthorized access significantly more difficult. Let's begin with the first and perhaps most common mistake people make, relying entirely on biometric authentication. Face recognition and fingerprint scanning are incredibly convenient, and millions of people use them every day without giving them a second thought. The problem is that in many jurisdictions, courts have treated biometric identifiers differently from passcodes. A passcode exists only in your mind, while your fingerprint and face are physical characteristics. Because of that distinction, courts in various locations have been more willing to allow compelled biometric unlocking than compelled disclosure of a passcode. This is why security professionals consistently recommend using a strong alphanumeric passcode as your primary layer of protection. You can still enjoy the convenience of biometric unlocking, but your passcode should remain strong, unique, and difficult to guess. iPhone users should also know that repeatedly pressing the power button 5 times quickly can temporarily disable Face ID, forcing the device to require a passcode before it can be unlocked again. The second major mistake involves Android devices and a feature called USB debugging. This setting was created for software developers who need advanced access to their phones while testing applications. When enabled, it allows a connected computer to communicate directly with parts of the Android operating system that are normally protected. Although useful for development work, it can increase exposure if left active unnecessarily. Many users enable USB debugging while following online tutorials, rooting a device, transferring files, or troubleshooting a problem, and then forget to disable it afterward. In some cases, users may not even realize it was enabled in the first place. Because forensic tools can potentially benefit from this access, checking and disabling USB debugging when it is not needed is an important security practice. The third mistake is leaving your phone unlocked, or recently unlocked, during situations where device security matters most. USB restricted mode on iPhone is designed to become more restrictive after a device has remained locked for a certain period of time. If the phone is currently unlocked or was unlocked only moments ago, security protections may not yet be operating at their strongest level. This is one reason security experts recommend locking your device immediately whenever you are not actively using it. Allowing the device to remain securely locked gives built-in protections time to take effect and can reduce the effectiveness of USB-based access methods. Mistake number 4 is assuming that a factory reset completely eliminates all recoverable information. While modern smartphones use strong encryption by default, data recovery techniques have evolved considerably over the years. On some older devices and storage systems, information may still be recoverable under certain circumstances, even after a reset. True protection comes from combining encryption with strong security settings before a problem occurs. A factory reset should not be viewed as a substitute for proper device security. The fifth and final mistake is neglecting software updates. Tools designed to analyze smartphones often rely on specific vulnerabilities found in operating systems. Both Apple and Google regularly release updates that patch security flaws and close previously discovered weaknesses. Running an outdated version of iOS or Android may leave known vulnerabilities unpatched, creating opportunities that newer software versions have already addressed. Simply keeping your phone fully updated remains one of the easiest and most effective security measures available. Now let's talk about what you should do on your own device. If you're using an iPhone, the setting you need to review is called USB Accessories. Open the Settings app, navigate to Face ID and Passcode or Touch ID and Passcode, enter your passcode, and scroll down to the section labeled Allow Access When Locked. There you will find the USB Accessories option. If this setting is enabled, your device may continue allowing USB data communication while locked. For maximum protection, many security experts recommend turning this setting off. When disabled, USB restricted mode can function as intended, limiting data access through the port after the phone has remained locked for the required period. iPhone users should also be aware of lockdown mode, a security feature introduced by Apple in iOS 16. This mode is designed for individuals who may face elevated digital threats and significantly restricts various functions, including certain forms of device communication. While it is not necessary for every user, it may be worth considering if you believe you are at higher risk of targeted attacks. For Android users, the primary setting to check is USB debugging. Open Settings, go to About Phone, and locate the build number. If developer options have been activated on your device, return to Settings and open the Developer Options menu. There you can verify whether USB debugging is enabled. If it is turned on and you do not actively need it, disable it immediately. If you do not see developer options at all, USB debugging is typically inactive by default. Android users should also review app permissions regularly. Open Privacy Settings, access the Permission Manager, and examine which applications have access to your camera, microphone, location, contacts, and other sensitive information. Remove permissions that are no longer necessary. In addition, check your USB connection preferences and set the default mode to charging only rather than file transfer whenever possible. This ensures that connecting your phone to a USB cable does not automatically allow data exchange. To strengthen your overall smartphone security, follow this complete privacy checklist. First, disable USB accessories on iPhone or USB debugging on Android if those settings are not required. Second, create a strong alphanumeric passcode of at least 12 characters instead of relying on a short PIN. Third, install operating system updates as soon as they become available. Fourth, familiarize yourself with the emergency method for temporarily disabling Face ID on iPhone. Fifth, enable two-factor authentication on every important account connected to your device. Sixth, turn off Bluetooth and Wi-Fi when you are not using them. Seventh, review application permissions regularly and revoke unnecessary access to your camera, microphone, and location data. Eighth, consider using secure messaging applications for sensitive communications. Ninth, enable device location and remote wipe features so you can erase your information if the phone is lost or stolen. Finally, always keep your device locked when it is not in use and remain aware of who has physical access to it. To summarize everything we've covered, the hidden settings that deserve your attention are USB accessories on iPhone and USB debugging on Android. The biggest security mistakes include relying solely on biometrics, leaving developer features enabled, keeping your phone unlocked unnecessarily, assuming factory resets solve every privacy problem, and ignoring software updates. The strongest protection comes from a combination of secure settings, a powerful passcode, updated software, carefully managed permissions, and a proactive approach to privacy. Your smartphone contains an extraordinary amount of information about your life. Spending just a few minutes reviewing these settings can dramatically improve your security and help ensure that your personal data remains protected. If you found this information useful, consider supporting the channel and staying tuned for future videos focused on privacy, digital security, and understanding your rights in an increasingly connected world.